Hey there. Today I get to talk about two more of the awesome characters releasing next month. So join me as we talk about Marvel Crisis Protocols, Prince of the Sea, and King of Kung Fu. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Now, as you may have noticed in the thumbnail, I also have a couple of Team Tactic cards that I feel like are absolutely going to be worth talking about, one for each of the respective characters. But I'm going to first start with Namor the Submariner. His stat block on its own is already worth talking about and taking note of, not necessarily because of the stamina and defense values being decent for a 5 threat, but rather because he has a long move on a 50 millimeter base, which puts him among the vaulted ranks of only two other characters, Angela and Amazing Spider-Man, who can get in a single bound move from deployment to the midline, which makes for a really nice safe extraction plan for one of those centerline objectives. But no worries, Namor gives us plenty more to be excited about. His Trident attack only has a range of 2, but rolls 6 dice and is a builder. And maybe most importantly, comes with a guaranteed short move toward the target after damage is dealt. And that's all, well, nice. Then he has his spender also limited to the range of 2 and has a strength of 7 for 3 power, which is just kind of average. However, what is not at all average is the effect or effects tied to this attack. So for 3 power, you get one of the 3 guaranteed effects. No triggers like dice results needed or damage. You're just guaranteed to either 1, make your opponent drop all asset tokens they're currently holding, 2, deal damage to each other enemy character within range 2 of the target, and they are all then pushed away from the target short. And no size restriction on that, by the way. Then the final option is immediately get to interact with any number of objective tokens, and if you do, after all of your interacting is done, you get a free short advance. To break this down a little bit further, this isn't like one of the most stupidly dumb and broken attacks in the game or anything. It's just extremely versatile. The Swarm of Crabs only forces asset tokens to be dropped, so if you're playing a game with civilian asset tokens, it doesn't even really matter. Still a good ability. The Octopus Grasp is probably the most universally useful for free control, and damage is great, but it won't affect the target itself, so you can't just suddenly push everybody off of a point. Then finally, Wave of Turtles does have the really nice timing of after the attack is resolved. So if opponent is dazed or KO'd, you can then pick up all of those objective tokens that they drop for free, or you can suddenly interact on a pay to flip once that character has been dazed or knocked out. Uh, However, it you don't get the actual movement unless you do interact with at least one objective with that. So yeah, that's just two attacks on Namor. They're both really good. So between a great stat block to start off with and those attacks, he's off to a really good start. But no worries, he gets better. Imperious Rex, which I will absolutely be calling it Imperious Wrecked, will cost him 3 power and an action, but then lets him make a move followed by a trident attack. And if that attack deals damage, the target gets staggered. So this is very similar to Thor's charge, but with the downside of not getting the chance to go bowling with the target character, but has the plus side of making that charge from much further away with the long move and a 50 millimeter base, especially since he can make that charge from deployment with some help. Thankfully, he doesn't need too much help since Atlantean Might gives him an extra power during the power phase, but also there's a new ability under that that is going to be very annoying for a lot of characters out there. It says that damage caused by this character's attacks and effects cannot be reduced or prevented by superpowers or team tactic cards. So reduce damage by 1 to a minimum of 1 doesn't exist for him. Pay to reduce damage effects. Nope. Exceptional healing in Xavier's Dream? Also no. Namor is going to be able to hunt down characters who prove difficult to just take down normally because of his speed and then just burst through the defensive tech. And to make sure he's good at it, he also has Charismatic Leader, giving him 1 reroll on all of his attack and defense rolls. but also the same to all of his buddies within range 2. This is also the first instance of this ability that isn't called Strategic Genius, meaning that these reroll bubbles can now stack. So somebody's absolutely going to have fun busting that wide open with a Zemo Namor team up. Last couple of things to mention is that he does have flight, so he can book it around the table, and he is the first new gem bearer that we've had in a while, specifically for the Time Gem. The Time Gem is often seen as one of the weaker of the set of six. So, in case you aren't aware of what it does, it gives a recalibration matrix-esque style reroll when the bearer is attacking, but allows slash forces both the attacker and defender to reroll all of their dice, including failure results. So it can be good, but what it offers is a bit expensive, both power and threat wise. Thankfully, Namor doesn't have too many things to spend power on, and by having the gem, it gets his power a little bit more accelerated, and by giving him 3 a turn between the might and his base power, it makes sure that he always has either his spender or his charge online every turn. And maybe most importantly is that that means that charge is available from round 1, meaning he can charge the mid line for a double tap right out the gate. There are no changes on his injured side, though, so that's pretty good news for him. All in all, Namor is a beast of a character. He has mobility on the scale of Angela, some really strong punching power, and then some, given that he's able to punch through a lot of the defensive abilities that are out in the game. As well, he has some pretty potent control with the different abilities attached to his spender. The jury is out on whether or not you need to slap the time gem on him. My first thought is if you already have an easy access to giving him the extra power through an affiliated character like Wong in the Defenders, or maybe if you're splashing him amongst the Avengers or in the X-Men with Charles, passing him a power, then the gem isn't really needed. But maybe in Shield, that could be worth a try or two to see how it plays out. As for the really fantastic team tactic card that comes with Namor, we have the Prince's Protection. It is a bodyguard team tactic card, not too unlike Heroes for Hire or Comrade's Keeper that have come before it. This one has Namor spending 2 power, but instead of being placed by the defender, Namor gets to be placed within range 1 of the attacker. And if he doesn't get dazed, he gets to push all enemy characters within range 2 of him away short. So, yeah, while he doesn't have crazy defensive tech or anything, his defenses are still formidable, and the ability to have access to both controlling your opponent's attack target and the control on this card makes it well worth bringing pretty much every single game that I can think of. As far as affiliations go, I think the only confirmed one we have for Namor is Shield, since, well, he can be a leader with Shield through the use of the Team Tactic card that grants defensive rerolls to the squad, as well as the ability to modify skulls, as long as they're within range 2 of a buddy. There aren't too many in affiliation who make great use of that in Shield, but you splash a Zemo in, and suddenly you're just cooking with gas. Outside of that, Namor is just going to be a really well-rounded all-comer, similar to Beta Ray Bill in a lot of ways. Most leaderships will do right by him, and what team is going to refuse a safe midline grab? I do think he will shine brightest under the teams that can supply him a round 1 midline charge, but that's just me. The other character I have to talk about today is Shang-Chi, our supreme martial artist. 4-3-4 on the defenses doesn't look great with 5 health, but he does go up to 6 on his backside, along with several other changes. Otherwise, I don't think there is anything particularly notable for his stat block. The same can't be said for his attacks, though. His builder, again, for a 4 threat, rolls 6 dice at range 2 and can be either physical or mystic. And on a crit block, you also get to give out the stacker condition. So yeah, on a 4 threat character, that's really solid. His second attack is a nice engagement tool with a range of 3, strength of 5. It will guarantee Shang-Chi 1 power, as well as place him within range 1 of the target. Notably, there is no spender on his healthy side of the card. We then have 4 fantastic superpowers, though. First up is the fancily worded Charge. The only attack he can use off of this is his 10,000 shape strike, but you aren't really going to mind that after you see what 5 Elemental Fist does. That ability costs 1 power and can be used after Shang-Chi makes an attack. He can either then flow like water to advance short or give an enemy the good old 1 inch punch. This option lets Shang-Chi pick an enemy character, not just the target of the attack, that is within range 2 and size 3 or less, and push it away short. Additionally, if during that push that character contacts another character or terrain feature, they gain the stun special condition. Now, of course, this can also be used on the target if you want to control them, but the versatility is nice to have. The superpower I skipped over is Dragon Chases Its Tail. Basically, for 2 power, if an enemy within range 2 attacks Shang-Chi and didn't manage to damage him, that enemy gets to be thrown short in any direction with no size restriction on that. The fact that this doesn't have to be done up front is really nice and should make characters on low health not want to attack Shang-Chi up close, especially because of the Supreme Martial Artist, which means that he gets to count blanks against attacks coming at him from within range 3. Even the Mystic kind, unlike normal martial artist. It's real great. So he gets pretty tanky after he closes the distance, and his charge and Phoenix kick allow him to do that pretty well. As we take a look at his injured side, we have 3 pretty significant swaps on his card aside from the difference in stamina value. First off, we lose the flying kick in exchange for quite the spender. It has the shorter distance of 2, but packs a punch at 10 dice for 5 power. The ability attached to it is a little bit conditional, but powerful for when it comes up. If you have a stagger on an enemy character and hit them with an attack, you get to put it on an activation token. So it's not necessarily very common to come across enemies with a stagger condition because it's one of the more rare ones to give out, but being able to upgrade that stagger to a full-blown activation token is really nice, just in case the 10 die mystic attack isn't enough to get the job done. The next big change is that 5 Elemental Fist gets traded out for 64 Infinite Palms. It still costs 1 and can be used after the strike attack is resolved, but now has the choice of healing 1 and removing 1 status condition instead of the advanced short from flowing water. The 1 inch punch, though, remains the exact same as from the other side of his card. Then finally, we get to lose the Dragon Chasing Tail for the Wild Goose. This new power triggers on being attacked from within range 2, and then after the attack is resolved, Shang-Chi gets to advance short and then places attacker within range 1 of him. But this can only be used once per turn, so you can't drag your opponent's model too far out to the middle of nowhere, but still far enough away to be a major problem for the character getting dragged away. So to say all Shang-Chi has a lot of stuff going on feels like an understatement. And it isn't really helped by some of the really wordy attacks and powers, even if they are all super thematic names. So I will leave figuring out the specific play patterns of Shang-Chi to you all getting experience with the character on the table, but the really easy picture to put together here is you want Shang-Chi in the fight, and you don't want him to get out of the fight. Be wary of snipers as well, I guess. Supreme Martial Artist is a fantastic defensive ability, but given his 11 total stamina, he can get picked apart pretty easily by some long-range attacks. So my general advice would be, since he is pretty mobile, just to move past that initial kind of brawl that usually breaks out in a game where all of the range 2, range 3 characters sit. And if your opponent has a back line of range 4 and 5 attackers, is to just get him into that back line. Take out the Rockets and Hawkeyes of the game. If your opponent doesn't have those, well, that's not something you have to worry about. Otherwise, the hardest part of playing Shang-Chi is going to be remembering all of the cool things he can do and which side of the card he can do them on. As far as affiliations go, he's absolutely going to love Daredevil's Defenders since he wants to be up in the brawl anyways. All of his attacks are within range 2, so he's just adding on some consistency onto his already powerful attacks. I don't believe we have any other affiliations confirmed at this point. I could see him finding homes amongst the Web Warriors to stack that martial artist with a defensive reroll while giving a nice mystic attacker to the Web Warriors. Maybe Midnight Suns to give him another mobility tool to keep him in the fight. but really I don't think anywhere is calling out to him quite like Daredevil's Defenders leadership is. And since he's already affiliated there, it's just kind of the perfect match. As for his team tactic card, I'm not sure if it's stapled to him quite as much as it is other character combos out there, but it's still pretty close. Chi Mastery costs 3 power and can be played when Shang-Chi attacks. He can then change 2 results either in the attack or defense roll to any other result. This card is simply wild, not just changing 2 wilds. I'm not sure how many of you have played with Bats the Ghost Hound that lets you modify 1 die to any result, but that card has been clutched several times for me. This can let you remove blocks from your opponent's roll, not to mention take away specific defensive results that can let your opponent blank attack rolls, or maybe against a character like Black Cat or Medusa, where you can't modify your dice into them, but you can change theirs all of a sudden. Then, of course, you can force your own dice to behave on an attack to get more successes, or even guarantee that stagger trigger to follow it up with Dim Mak to activate a character. You may not bring it every single time, but I feel like this card is going to be one that you should see play with alongside Shang-Chi. That's all I have to say about these 2 awesome new additions to the game. From the comments over the last couple of weeks, it definitely seems that this is the preferred kind of character review, and it also feels a lot less robotic to me, so I'm going to stick with that. Thank you all for the feedback. If you, as always, we do have a monthly giveaway going on. To enter, all you need to do is leave a comment on the video the same month that it's released, and it'll enter you into June's giveaway. So if you need a prompt, let me know what affiliation you think Shang-Chi can shine in outside of Defenders. Maybe I'm missing something obvious here. All of that is, of course, thanks to Tritex. And speaking of Tritex, go ahead and talk about our sponsors real quick. Tritex over in the UK. If you're shopping online anyway, you can use them and use the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout for an extra 5% off. And if you use that code on a pre-order item like these new Defenders coming out later this month, it'll grant you a grand total of 25% off of your order compared to retail, which is, really nice. If you're in the US, you can shop at gamechefs.org, where you can use the code GamersGuild, no spaces, for 15% off of that order. As always, if you have an LGS you are playing at, though, we encourage you to support where you play. I also want to take a moment and say if you are enjoying the content here on YouTube or one of the different podcasts and want to support our efforts directly, you can support us on Patreon. As well, if you want to join in silly discussions or ask questions to be answered from rules to general advice, you can join the Guild Hall Discord page that has a link down in the description as well. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.